This is the creepy story about the daughter. There was a mother who had a 5-year-old daughter named Kate. The little girl had a constant habit of asking her mom if she was pretty. The mother always replied, "Of course you're pretty," even though she was tired of answering the same question. One day the mother took her daughter down for a walk by the river. Kate then stared into the water and asked her mom if she was pretty. The mother was so annoyed with answering the same question, she lost her temper and in a blind rage, she pushed her own daughter into the river. The little girl was unable to swim, and within moments she sunk to the bottom and died. When the mother realized what she did, she was overcome with regret. However, she did not want to go to jail and told the police that Kate slipped and fell into the water. A few years later, she got pregnant and gave birth to another child. She named her Kate to honor her dead daughter. One day, the mother found the little girl staring at herself in the mirror. "Mommy, do you think I'm pretty?" said Kate. "Of course you're pretty," replied the mother. The little girl then looked up at her mother and said, "If you thought I was so pretty, then why did you push me into the river?"
What killer kids look like today. Eric Smith was sentenced to life in prison at age 13. This was for murdering 4-year-old Derek Robbie. Eric saw Derek walking alone in the park. He then took Robbie to some nearby woods and dropped a large rock on the 4-year-old's head, ending his life. Over the years, Eric Smith has been interviewed many times, most recently in 2021. When Alyssa Bustamante was only 15, she was sentenced to 30 years in prison. This was for ending the life of her neighbor, 9-year-old Elizabeth Alton. Alyssa used a knife to end Elizabeth's life. Alyssa then wrote in her diary, "I just killed someone." This is what Alyssa looks like today. She'll be eligible for parole in 2024, meaning that she may soon be released.
This is why you should always lock your front doors. A kid living with both of his parents decided to watch a movie for their family weekly movie night. He then gets up to use the restroom. As he is in the restroom, he sees all of the power in the house cuts off, and then he hears 2 loud thumps. He locks the bathroom door and hears heavy objects being dragged across the hallway. The kid, freaking out, runs out of the bathroom and runs into the restroom. Once he is inside the room, he locks the door. As he locks the door, he jumps in bed and acts like he's asleep in hopes that this person who is in the house will ignore a child sleeping. He closes his eyes and hears the door creak at the same time. He squints his eyes and sees a man with no eyes dragging the bodies of both of his parents. The man dragging his parents sits his mom's dead body in a chair facing him, and then sets the dad's body on the floor facing up. It was almost like whoever was in the house who killed them wanted him to see it. He then sees the man writing something on the wall and then climbs under his bed. He laid there for hours knowing that if he moved a muscle he would end up just like his parents. He finally built up enough courage to read the wall, and the writing on the wall said, "I know you're awake."
This is one of the most dangerous and evil killers in modern history. His name is Israel Keys. He basically just went random places and killed random girls. But we're only going to be talking about the last one, the one that got him caught for this video. Now this dude is messed up. So he caught and kidnapped his last victim as she was closing a coffee shop in Anchorage, Alaska. It's so sad because her dad was literally about to pick her up as she got kidnapped. He stole her debit card and everything she had on her. Then he killed her and hid her in his shed. But it gets even more messed up. This dude is so evil and so greedy, he decides to pose her dead body like she's alive and send the picture to the parents to ask for a ransom. So they put the ransom in her account, so he goes and takes her debit card to Las Vegas and goes to withdraw the money. He withdrew the money in Las Vegas with the disguise on. But luckily the ATM camera caught the rental car he was in, and that led to him getting caught, thankfully.
This woman was brutally murdered and targeted by a complete stranger for being a woman and walking alone at night. This is 25-year-old Mitchell Dang. She loved to vlog her life on YouTube and she was so kind. But on August 26th of this year, she would post her last vlog before she would be brutally murdered by a complete stranger after leaving a music venue. That day, Mitchell vlogged her outfit and she was happy and dancing. She was really excited about going to a nightclub with her friends, and the last thing she told the world was, quote, "I'm just going to dance my heart away," end quote. She was last seen alive that night leaving the Alley Cat music venue in Atlanta, Georgia. She would be missing for 4 days until her nude body was found stashed underneath a stairwell in the basement of a parking garage. What's really sad is that it took authorities 4 days to find her, but the parking garage where she was found was right across the street from the Fulton County Courthouse. It would take nearly a month, but security footage from the parking garage and Mitchell's MARTA card information led police to 24-year-old Jakevius Arnold, who admitted to killing her. Security footage showed Mitchell leaving the venue the night she was killed, and shortly after, she was approached by Jacavius. He was a complete stranger to her, but according to police, he pretended to be a good Samaritan and insisted on helping her find her car. The two were then seen on CCTV walking around the parking garage where her body would later be found. According to Jacavius, he forced Mitchell under the stairwell, choked her until she passed out, and then proceeded to sexually assault her. But Mitchell woke up sometime during the assault, so he strangled her again until she died. Police say Jacavius then took off all of her clothes and sexually assaulted her corpse for at least 20 minutes before stealing her cell phone, covering her face with a newspaper, and leaving her. He did admit to returning once more to the scene to get his sunglasses and to hide her body more. What's absolutely terrifying is that Jacavius also admitted to 2 additional sexual assaults under the exact same circumstances, targeting women walking alone at night. He has since been arrested and charged with murder, kidnapping, aggravated sexual battery, and necrophilia, amongst many other charges. I've attached a GoFundMe in my bio created for Mitchell's family to take the time to grieve this horrible loss. Mitchell's dad has gone on to say that ever since her life was taken, their entire family sleeps together in the living room. He says they can't separate, that they have to stay together to fill up the emptiness.
In 2015, Berlina Wallace threw sulfuric acid over her boyfriend, Mark Van Dungen, in a fit of jealousy and rage, after he began a relationship with another woman. Berlina Wallace threw the acid over Mark as he lay in her bed sleeping, while laughing, "If I can't have you, nobody can." Burns covered more than 25% of Mark's body, and much of the damaged skin had to be surgically removed. His face was massively scarred. He lost the sight in his left eye, and most in his right eye. Mark spent more than a year in a hospital in Bristol after the attack before family and friends hired a private ambulance to take him to Belgium, where Mark, who was only 29 at the time, applied for euthanasia. Berlina Wallace was found guilty by a jury at Bristol Crown Court of throwing a corrosive substance with intent but was cleared of murder. Berlina was ordered to serve 12 years in prison before she could be considered for parole. This is by far one of the most disturbing things I've ever heard a girlfriend do to her boyfriend. This attack was so brutal and painful that Mark wanted to get euthanized and did.
The final words of killers. Jimmy Glass was a convicted murderer put to death by the state of Louisiana. In December of 1982, he took part in a grisly Christmas Day murder. Jimmy Glass was already serving time in jail for a lesser crime when him and fellow inmate Jimmy Wingo escaped. On the run and desperate for money, they found the home of Newton and Earlene Brown. They threw a cinder block through the sliding glass door, rushed in the house, down the hallway, and killed them before they could even react. On June 12, 1987, he was strapped into the electric chair, with his final words being, "I'd rather be fishing."
Hello everyone, I'm True Crime Caitlin, and today we're going to be talking about a case from Leicestershire. Thank you to the commenter for the suggestion. So today we're going to talk about Kaye Haywood, who was groomed, raped and murdered. Kaye was a normal, happy 15-year-old in 2015. She was an avid user of social media and she would often accept friend requests from people that she didn't know. One of these people were 27-year-old Luke Harlow. They began to speak on Messenger before exchanging phone numbers. They would text constantly from morning till night. Luke would begin to love bomb Kaye. He would give her many compliments, calling her beautiful and gorgeous. He nicknamed her Princess and he was always there for her whenever she was feeling down. When Kaye admitted to Luke that she was only 15, instead of Luke telling her that they couldn't continue to talk, he began to manipulate her. He told her that their relationship had to be, quote, their little secret. He told Kaye that if she told anyone about them two that he would get locked up and he would get in lots of trouble. He told her this to scare her into silence. On the 13th of November 2015, Kaye and Luke met for the first time. Kaye had told her parents that she was going to be spending the night over at a friend's house when she was in fact going to Luke's house, which was in Ibstock. They spent the night watching movies and getting drunk. The next day, Kaye texted her mum and asked if she could sleep out again. Her mum, obviously thinking that Kayle's just having a really good time with one of her friends, let her stay out. At approximately 7:30 p.m, Luke went to the house of 29-year-old Stephen Beedman to ask if he had any mixer for some alcohol. Luke told Stephen that he, quote, had a bird over. So Stephen made his way over to Luke's house, where he would drink with Luke and Kaylee for 4 hours. Kaylee was so intoxicated that she was slurring her words, she couldn't speak, she couldn't keep her eyes open or her head upright. She was very vulnerable. Go ahead and check out part 2, which is uploaded right now.
What would you guess is the most common job that serial killers have? Well, a former FBI assistant director argues that it's long-haul trucking. He just wrote a book that basically claims serial killers are attracted to the job of long-haul trucking because it's conducive to committing a lot of crimes and not being detected by police. And the author brings up cases like that of Robert Ben Rhodes, who was a trucker that took the lives of 50 suspected victims. He built a chamber in the back of his truck to keep his victims, and he was able to evade police detection because he was just constantly on the move. But the author argues that there's 850 unsolved murders along freeways in America that were most likely committed by truckers that were serial killers. He says that serial killers are maybe attracted to the job of long-haul trucking because it presents them an opportunity to commit crimes, even murders, largely undetected, exploit the seams in jurisdictions, like grab a victim in one jurisdiction and kill them in a second, and dump their body in a third. It's an interesting theory for sure, but I will say that today there's actually a problem where truckers are over-surveilled to the point where bosses can kind of constantly spy on the truckers as they do their jobs. So before you sign up to be a trucker because you think it'll allow you to commit crimes without any repercussions, just know that today that's not really the case.
Serial Killers You've Never Heard Of, Part 22. This is Pedro Rodrigues Filho, also known as Killer Petey. The Brazilian serial killer who was sentenced to 126 years, took a bite of his own father's heart, and was released in 2018 and now has a YouTube channel. Let's get into it. Pedro was born in Minas Gerais, Brazil in 1954, born with a deformed skull. His deformed skull was the result of his father abusing his mother while pregnant, as well as during most of his childhood. His first brush with death came at the age of 13 when he had a fight with his older cousin. He had pushed him into a sugarcane press, almost killing him. He said, "I pushed him thinking his whole body would go through, but only his arm did." His first real killing came only a year later at the age of 14 when he shot the vice mayor. Pedro's father was fired from his job under false accusations of stealing, so he took matters into his own hands. His second murder wasn't far behind when he tracked down the actual thief and killed him. After that, he relocated to a new city in Brazil, where he committed a few robberies, killed a drug dealer, and fell in love with a woman named Maria Olympia. The two lived together until Maria was killed by gang members, and that fueled his next crime spree. He hunted down and murdered several gang members trying to avenge the death of Maria. He was like a real-life Punisher. He never killed anybody who he didn't believe did something wrong. He never harmed children, women, or good fathers. On May 24th, 1973, he was arrested at the age of 19. Yeah, everything I talked about all happened before he was even 20 years old. During his transport to prison, he was placed in the back of a police car with two other criminals, one of which was a rapist who he killed before they even reached the prison. His next murder was pure vengeance, going after his father, who was serving jail time for murdering his mother with a machete. He stabbed him 22 times, but that's not the worst part. It is then said that he cut his father's heart out and took a bite of it. You break my heart, I eat yours. While serving his 126 years in prison is when he really took justice into his own hands. Between 1973 and 2007, before his first release, he killed 47 other inmates, including his father. Now, his crimes within prison brought his sentence up to 400 years, but Brazilian law at the time says 30 years max. In 2007, the courts decided he was rehabilitated and he was released until 2011. His final conviction was in 2018 for participation in a prison riot, but it was a short stay and he was released the same year. He now has an active YouTube channel with over 250,000 subs. He is believed to have over 100 victims, and during a podcast he was asked, would he kill again? He said no, he would only kill again if someone came to take his life or the lives of his loved ones.
Just been told that your teenage son has died, but he's also killed 4 other people. How the hell do you process that information? Jordan McInness was an 18-year-old boy from the Gold Coast in Australia, and honestly, he had the perfect life. He He was good looking, he was intelligent, he had loads of friends, had a loving family, he'd actually just started at the Griffith University and was super sporty and sociable. It was December 2012 that everything would change. Jordan and his mum Melissa headed out on a shopping trip together, and she tried on a cute black dress and asked Jordan what his opinion was. He said she looked really pretty, and neither of them had any idea she'd be wearing that very same dress to his funeral just a week later. On the 8th of December, Jordan went out with a bunch of his friends to a Christmas party in Brisbane, and that night he drove there, he parked his car, and he went in and he sat and he drank alcohol and he smoked M. Now, despite this being horrifically irresponsible, he then decided to drive himself home in the early hours of the morning. And it wasn't even like he was being careful, he actually drove way over the speed limit that night. And suddenly, terrifyingly, his car collided with a stationary vehicle. Now, I believe the car had been parked because it had broken down and it was a car full of people. This collision was horrific. The other car burst into flames like an absolute fireball. People inside were Natasha Maggs and Alan Sullivan, both 20, along with another couple, Cody Holland Williams, age 18, and his girlfriend Tiana. A 15-month-old baby was also inside of the vehicle, who was shockingly the only survivor. Both of the child's parents were killed in the horror blaze. The baby was taken to be looked after by extended family, thank God, but honestly, this just does not bear thinking about. And obviously, Jordan's family, when they were told that he had passed away, and then they were told that he'd also killed 4 other people because of his actions, they just had so many mixed emotions, understandably. They were like, how the hell do we arrange a funeral and talk about all of the good things about Jordan when he has just caused all of these people to die? Now, I feel so sorry for Jordan's mum just having to deal with that like conflict of emotions. It just must be absolutely horrifying. She actually said in interviews that she felt like she'd failed as a mum, which obviously definitely wasn't her fault at all. And his parents now advocate for more education around young people and reckless driving.
This is one of the most dangerous and evil killers in modern history. His name is Israel Keys. He basically just went random places and killed random girls. But we're only going to be talking about the last one, the one that got him caught for this video. Now, this dude is messed up. So he caught and kidnapped his last victim as she was closing a coffee shop in Anchorage, Alaska. It's so sad because her dad was literally about to pick her up as she got kidnapped. He stole her debit card and like everything she had on her. Then he killed her and hid her in his shed. But it gets even more messed up. This dude is so evil and so greedy, he decides to pose her dead body like she's alive and send the picture to the parents to ask for a ransom. So they put the ransom in her account, so he goes and takes her debit card to Las Vegas and goes to withdraw the money. He withdrew the money in Las Vegas with the disguise on. But luckily the ATM camera caught the rental car he was in, and that led to him getting caught, thankfully.
Serial Killers You've Never Heard Of, Part 5. This is Craig, the Iron Man Price, also known as the Warwick Slasher. Between 1987 and 1989, he committed 4 murders. At the young age of 13, he committed his first murder, stabbing a nearby neighbor 58 times. 2 years later, he brutally killed 3 more neighbors, which was a mother and her 2 young daughters, stabbing the mother 57 times, her 10-year-old daughter 63 times, and brutally crushing the skull of her 8-year-old daughter. The stabbings were so brutal that the handles of the knives actually broke off. In September 1989, he confessed to all his crimes. Showing no remorse, he actually mocked the victim's dying sounds. He was sent to a juvenile correctional facility. From that point on, he racked up many more charges. He was actually set to be released April 2020, but stabbed an inmate.
Gregg has been sentenced to life in prison for murdering her mother and attempting to kill her stepfather in March. At just 15 years old, she will be spending the rest of her life in prison. According to child psychologist Dr. Andrew Clark, who testified for the defense at Carly's trial, on March 19, 2024, then 14-year-old Carly Gregg couldn't focus in class at Northwest Rankin High School. Carly's mother, 40-year-old Ashley Smiley, was a math teacher at the school. and that day, Carly was reportedly grumpy and irritable. According to Dr. Clark, Carly had dealt with symptoms of depression, had been prescribed medication that made her feel numb, had a history of self-harm, and had heard voices. However, a psychiatric mental health NP said that when she evaluated Carly, she did not report hearing voices or having lapses in memory. But on March 19th, when Carly arrived home with her mother to their house in Brandon, Mississippi, she went straight into her parents' bedroom and retrieved their gun from under their mattress. She then hid the gun behind her back and went into her own bedroom. There is video from inside the home, which you can see her walking, and then you can hear 3 gunshots. That was Carly fatally shooting her mother. After murdering her mother, Carly invited her friend over, allegedly texting her, "Have you ever seen a dead body?" And when Carly answered the door, she asked the friend, "Are you squeamish around dead bodies?" and then led the friend into her bedroom where her mother was laying dead. Carly then hid the camera that recorded the audio and video of what she had done, and that led to her later being charged with tampering with evidence.
How to survive in the Middle Ages. Find the closest church and explain that you're a traveler from a distant land. Demonstrate your ability to write, as this will establish your credibility as an educated person. After the church takes you in, use your rare writing skills to find work as a scribe. Move to a big city like Florence, and your scribing business will flourish, providing you a comfortable living.
He ended his mom's life for not letting him get Avril Lavigne tickets. 39-year-old Robert Lyons lived with his mom in Carroll Stream, Illinois. He was described as a troubled individual who struggled with mental health issues for many years. Robert also had a history of erratic behavior and had been in and out of treatment facilities. His relationship with his mother was strained, but his mother, Linda, was a caring and loving parent trying her best to help Robert manage his issues. On March 14th of 2008, Robert told his mom to call one of her friends to get him tickets and a skybox to see Avril Lavigne in concert. Linda told him no, and when he heard her say no, he became enraged. This started an argument between the two, and in a fit of rage, Robert grabbed a champagne bottle and struck his mom twice in the head. But this wasn't enough for him. He then stabbed his mom 9 times in the back. Robert used so much force that one knife blade broke off inside of her and the other one bent. After attacking his mom, he poured harsh household chemicals like Drano, Tile X all over her body. Robert then changed his clothes, left his mom's lifeless body on the floor, and left to go shopping. Neighbors and friends were concerned once they hadn't heard from Linda, so they called police so that they could go and check on her. Once police arrived and went inside of her home, they found Linda's lifeless body on the bathroom floor. Police immediately focused on Robert since he lived with his mom and he was nowhere to be found. Just hours later, Robert was arrested at a Hooters restaurant, calmly enjoying his food. In September of 2011, trial finally began for Robert, and the jury deliberated for less than 2 hours, and he was convicted of first-degree murder. In January of 2012, when Robert was in court, he confessed to everything and stated that he wasn't taking his medication, and during the time he was suffering from a manic episode. Ultimately, Robert was sentenced to 40 years in prison.
Another cold case has finally been solved as the final Bear Brook victim has been identified. And this is crazy because I literally just covered this case on my podcast and on here last week. In 1985, a 55-gallon drum was found in Bear Brook State Park near Manchester, New Hampshire. Inside the barrel were 2 bodies, a woman and a child. 15 years later, another barrel was found nearby with 2 children inside. These victims were all the victims of a homicide, but for years they remained unidentified and their case went cold. In 2018, 3 of the victims were identified thanks to an internet sleuth and genetic genealogy. They were identified as a woman, Marlise Honeychurch, and her 2 children, Marie Vaughn and Sarah McWaters. But the 4th victim, this girl, was unrelated and she remained unidentified. She has only been known as the middle child ever since. In 2019, it was announced that serial killer Terry Peter Rasmussen, who died in prison in 2010 serving a sentence for the murder of another woman, was the biological father of that middle child. And he was named the prime suspect in the case, but since he was no longer alive at that point, he has never been charged in connection with the murder. Unfortunately, the girl's identity remained unknown, as did who her mother was, until now. Police just announced that the middle child has been identified as Rhea Rasmussen, born in 1976 in Orange County, California. Genetic genealogy also helped identify her mother as Pepper Reed, a woman who was born in 1952 in Texas and has not been seen since the late 1970s.
It is believed that Pepper may be another victim of Rasmussen's, and her case remains active and ongoing. Now she has been identified, and Rhea has her name back. In a statement, New Hampshire Attorney General John Formella said, quote, "This case has weighed on New Hampshire and the nation for decades. With Rhea Rasmussen's identification, all 4 victims now have their names back." He also said, "We continue to seek answers about the disappearance of Pepper Reed." And Rasmussen's daughter, who he had with another woman before he committed any of the murders he committed, has said that this will not be over for her until Pepper's case is closed. But this is huge, and I am so glad that she finally has her name back. Rest in peace, Rhea.
This woman went to the wrong house, so instead of trying to help her, this guy shot at her 17 times. According to the woman too, this guy grabbed her arm and her wrist and tried to restrain her, like, from moving any way possible. The dude's explanation was also super weird. The guy thought the lady was a sex worker and feared for his wife's safety, so he shot at her. Mind you, on the video camera, this lady was approaching the house confused because she was literally lost looking for her friend's address. If somebody that looks confused is scary to you, you probably shouldn't have a gun, to be honest with you. He was out on bail on Wednesday, and the judge said he cannot have any firearms anymore. Honestly, that's a good thing. This guy should definitely not have any firearms at all. On top of that, he should not be in contact with the 2 individuals who he shot at. After he shot at the woman, she got in her car and drove off, with her friends in it and everything. They were just looking for the address. He is getting hit with the attempted murder charge, so I'm sure possibly this guy might go to jail for like 10, 15 years. Hell, maybe even life if it's bad enough. This happened in Palm Bay, Florida. Let me know your thoughts in the comments.
This is a serial killer you haven't heard of that has more victims than Ted Bundy, John Wayne Gacy, and Jeffrey Dahmer combined. The Sunday Morning Slasher. Carl Eugene Watts targeted mostly young, attractive women walking alone in the dark. He would stab, slash, strangle, and drown them. Watts told a psychiatrist that they had evil eyes. And it wasn't enough to murder these women, he had to kill their spirits too, by burning personal items or tossing them in a sewer. His first victim was 19-year-old Gloria Steele, a mother and college student who was stabbed 33 times in her apartment. Michigan authorities knew he was responsible for dozens of murders, but they never had enough evidence to convict him. In 1982, Watts fled to Texas and resumed his murders, killing at least 12 more, including the youngest victim, 14-year-old Emily Lacroix. Now let's get to the moment he was finally caught. On May 23, 1982, Carl Watts choked Lori Lister until she was unconscious, then dragged her up the apartment steps. He used her keys to open the door and came face to face with Lori's roommate, Melinda Aguilar. Melinda was choked by Carl Watts as well, but this time she pretended to black out. He bound her hands behind her back and put her in a separate bedroom, while he filled up a bathtub where he planned to drown Lori Lister. With her hands still bound behind her back, Melinda quietly locked the bedroom door and proceeded to jump off a second-story balcony, where she yelled at a woman who was drinking coffee outside to call police. Unfortunately, Texas prosecutors offered immunity to Watts for the 13 murders he confessed to, in exchange for a 60-year sentence. Oddly enough, he was almost released from prison in 2006, but Michigan authorities were able to convict him of 2 murders before that could happen, and he died in prison in 2007 from prostate cancer.
17-year-old Taylor Goodridge has just become the 198th victim of the troubled teen industry. On December 20th, Taylor's name was tragically added to a list of kids just like her. It goes on and on, gone under the care of a system receiving an estimated $23 billion of public annual funds to protect them. The next names to be added are likely 15-year-old Cameron Myers and 17-year-old Citlali Alvalar. They were found dead in an Arizona water basin last Saturday after being reported missing from their group home on January 7th. But starting with Taylor. We know that in October of 2021, she was admitted to Utah's Diamond Ranch Academy for emotional issues. She was seriously sick for 3 months before she died. They call it a college-style campus where the staff are, quote, trained to believe students would lie about being ill and therefore did not take Taylor seriously. They told her to suck it up and take an aspirin. And then on December 20th, the academy called her father to report that they were finally taking her to the ER when she died of a heart attack in the parking lot. Her family has filed a lawsuit and they actually believe that she died of sepsis. So right now the academy is temporarily on probation. Other incidents here include the deaths of at least 2 other students, a teacher possessing horribly explicit material, and lawsuit after lawsuit of staff abusing the students. And then there's what's happened these past few weeks. Staff at Cameron and Citlali's Academy in Mesa say they knew they were going to leave, but because they're a state-licensed facility, couldn't make them stay. Here you can see the kind of residential group home where they were living, and the water basin where they were found 2 weeks later, with police already saying that foul play is suspected but not confirmed. Cameron has been forced to be in the system for nearly her whole life and is described as entertaining and hilarious by the friends she's made there. Did anyone even know she was missing? This organization they were a part of, Powerhouse Youth, claims on their website to provide 24-hour supervised care. If that's the case, I don't see how this could have happened. Obviously, there are so many cases like this, and their stories deserve to be shared. I will be putting the link to this list in my bio.